music to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Pun Kelly get caught in the fray. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lies right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity when they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Machine Pun Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts flow.
Hello and welcome to the newest edition of The Pun Show. Thanks for joining me. Always glad to have you here. Today, I'm going to avoid all the Epstein stuff for a day. I'm going to avoid all the ACA stuff for a day. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I'm going to devote the whole show to it. And it's in support of illegal immigration. And I say that with a caveat that I think what we need to do is we need to go and change what legal and illegal immigration are. So I'm going to go through in three parts. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the how we are who we are as a nation. Our nation is a history rich in heritage from immigration, from even back in the colonial days up until the present. Who we are as a nation is just completely interwoven with immigration. And I'm going to go in through the details of all of that because I feel like we need to review our history on this. Because if we, in this case, if we haven't learned from our history, we're not going to repeat it. And I know you like they usually like if you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. In this case, the history is positive, and we're going in the opposite direction of what we should be because we haven't learned our history lesson. So first, I'm going to just go through history and the different waves of immigration that came over, how each one built this nation, and how they brought culture with them and established things that have made us who we are today. Even apple pie, you know, the saying, as American as apple pie, American apple pie ain't American. Apples aren't even American. We had to import apples. There were people that actually, the Dutch learned how to harvest and grow apples in America. They're the ones that figured out the seeds and all of that they were able to eventually grow apples here. Apples aren't native to America. So Americans, apple pie isn't American. Hate to break it to you. But we're going to go through all the history of all the different things immigrants have brought to this country. Then I'm going to dive into who can actually immigrate. There's always this kind of, well, why don't you wait in line? 95% of the world, there's no line to wait in. And of the 5% that are, the line can be 50 to 100 years long. There are very few, there's not this easy way to just come over here and immigrate and do it legally and do it right. So I'm going to go through the different types of visas, what you have to do to obtain them, and show just how hard it is to immigrate. And our entire history is immigrants coming and filling the bottom rung ladders, the bottom rung positions, the bottom rung jobs of the ladder. And then they climb the ladder. And that's the American dream. The American dream does not start halfway up the ladder. The American dream starts at the bottom of the ladder. And the people that have been coming here for 400 years and working their way up from the bottom, that's who has made America what it is. So when our current system, we don't have any way to come in and work your way up from the bottom. And as a result, we don't have people taking those jobs. And this is why I say we need to reform our immigration system. So the last thing I'm going to do is go into some ideas on how we can reform it and the cost of reforming it. What do we get out of reforming it versus the cost of mass deportations? The net difference is with our GDP over the next 10 years, it could save us, it could cost us like $8 trillion to deport all the illegal immigrants. It would cost us a lot less to screen them and give them a pathway to citizenship. And in doing so, also generate more money. We could make a couple of $1 trillion off of legalizing immigration again. So that's a difference of $10 trillion. That's about 1/3 of our GDP. So let's talk the facts. So first, I'm going to share with you my screen here, and I'm going to be on this other screen reading through this. So don't get offended if I don't read to a comment right away. But let's start from the beginning. America, the sum of immigration. By the way, I'll have all of these dashboards linked in the comments, so that you can go back and look over these if you're interested in them. So every aspect of American life, from infrastructure we use, the food we eat, to the music we love, was built, created, and enriched by immigrants. And I just say, we are the sum of our immigration. We are not people, we are not just a country that has allowed people to immigrate to. Unless you're Native American, right, your ancestors immigrated from here, from somewhere. And even in a lot of ways, I almost, I know it sounds stupid to say this, but yes, Native Americans have also contributed to our culture. And some people probably think of, like Britain as being the, real America, and Native Americans as being the, immigrants, because they're the minority community. But no, English people were immigrants. But anyway, the Native Americans, like, one thing that you may not realize this, but American football. A lot of what we think of as American football is thanks to Native Americans. Who do you think invented the forward pass? That's right. You think about football, you think about quarterbacks, you think about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. Well, we wouldn't know those guys. We wouldn't know Pat Mahomes if it weren't for Native Americans, because they invented the forward pass. They made American football, American football. So, all right, let's go in through. This is just, I went through 15 groups, 400 years of immigration, and these are the waves that have come over at different times. And about 85 million people have immigrated here since 1607. So that's a huge part of our population is from that. And, obviously some of us are descended. So, okay, so in the early English colonies, they built what eventually became our cities. They built the early road systems. They built the early ports. Culturally, the foundation of our democratic governance and common law systems, our language, all that came from the British, who again were immigrants. Our institutions like Harvard, Yale, and colonial colleges, town hall meetings, public education systems, and apple pie brought over from the English, roast dinners, biscuits and gravy. All of those were innovations by the British, or all of those were things that were brought over, or that were, what's the word? And all of those were additions by the British. Anyway. So the Dutch also came over in those colonial times. And you know what city we got from the Dutch? New York City. And they built our canal systems, and they built the Manhattan street grid, the foundation of New York City. The greatest city in the world, right? Due to immigrants. We get Santa Claus from the Dutch. We get Easter eggs from the Dutch. We get cookies and donuts from the Dutch. So if you like cookies, you like immigration. Then institutions such as our stock market and the religious tolerance precedents. Like we talk a lot about separation of church and state, and the British. The you know who persecuted more Christians than anybody else is other Christians. And so when we talk about like just making Christianity like a national religion, or putting the Bible in schools and stuff like that, it's only a matter of time before who's a real Christian becomes the issue, right? Look at these MAGAs. This is how they behave. They look to find something different. They don't look to find something in common with you. They look to find how you're different. So the very principle that religious freedom should exist comes from the Dutch. Then our foods that we got from the Dutch, coleslaw. I love some coleslaw. It's so good. Waffles. See, isn't that something? Like you got chicken and waffles, right? America's the only country in the world that can make like chicken and waffles become a thing. Fried chicken came from African Americans and or from slaves, actually. I just want to emphasize that they were slaves eating fried chicken. And then the waffles came from the Dutch. So the idea, like sitting down for a good plate of chicken and waffles, can't do that everywhere else in the world. And cookies and donuts. So I hope every police officer should be pro-immigrant, because we wouldn't have donuts without. Okay, maybe I went too far on that one. Hopefully somebody left. Okay, so then from enslaved Africans, which, obviously these were not immigrants in the conventional sense that they did not choose to come over here. So I'm not like referring to them as migrants, or like as in Texas would like to call them forced migrants, but they did have a culture that was assimilated into the United States. And I would say that that culture as much impact on what we do and what we enjoy and the society we live in as British culture. They, for instance, built the Capitol and the White House, two buildings that Donald Trump loves to attack. The Southern plantations and economy. And again, this is, like wrongly, they were enslaved and they were, working these plantations, not of their own free will. But the plantations did not just, they weren't just the basis for this economy in the South. The factories in the North and the textile factories in the North, they weren't using imported cotton. They were using U.S. cotton. They were using American cotton. And so a lot of the northern industries also depended on the slave labor, which is why a lot of the northerners also were really concerned about freeing slaves, even though they weren't slave states. They developed rice cultivation systems. And when we started building the railroads, one of the key groups that helped build the railroads were the freed slaves. So that's just in terms of the infrastructure. Culturally, I just like jazz, blues, gospel, rock and roll, hip hop, country music, tap dance, all kinds of dancing, like break dancing and popping and what the stomping. I mean, they just almost every kind of dance that you can think of that we have embraced as a society comes from the Black culture. And if you've never like there's a something called polyrhythmic and callback, which is derived from African culture, not African American culture, actual African culture, like West African culture that came over here. Polyrhythmic means like you've got two rhythms going on at the same time. And it's become like the basis for like jazz music and a lot of extensions of jazz music. And then, like there's so many ways where we've incorporated things into our vernacular. Like like if you've ever heard of shotgun houses, they would build these houses on these rows where they were skinny, and there would just be like a series of rooms going straight back. Like you'd have the living room and and so it's like just a series of rooms that were going straight back, and they were called shotgun houses because you could fire a shotgun and go through every single room in the house with one shot. But that was an expression that they came up with. Our food, I love it when they talk when you have white people, white Southerners, MAGAs, and Confederate flag celebrators talking about I'm sorry, Ghostman, I'm just looking at your comment. What is the source for what? Some of us did not have the privilege of migration. Absolutely. So I hope you're still there. I don't want you to misunderstand me. I'm not saying that, Black Americans wanted to come over here. I am certainly not saying that. So anyway, their innovations, George Washington Carver, everybody's heard of him and his innovations with peanuts, but he went way beyond that. A lot of how we grew as a country had to do with his agricultural innovations, his improvements on just a number of things. And I think, if I remember correctly, he invented like over 400 things, and I think he only patented one thing because he thought that his invention should be used for good. If you've never heard of Charles Drew, this is an interesting story. Charles Drew invented the procedure to separate red blood cells from plasma. And in doing so, he allowed it so that you could store blood longer. And that led to the ability to do blood transfusions and to have blood banks. So just think, every single person that's had a surgery or a blood transfusion or anybody that's ever received blood in their entire lives owes something to this man, Charles Drew. And nobody even knows who he is. It's just sad. And in 1942, he actually resigned from the Peace Corps because they were segregating blood by race. Like they had the black people's blood over here and the white people's blood over here, even though there was no scientific difference at all between the two kinds of blood. And so he felt that segregation was unethical. And so he resigned from the Red Cross. Even the Red Cross has a racist history. I did not know that. Anyway, it's sad. It's sad when you learn some things. And this is something else I want to go into, is like parallel to all of these immigration groups coming over and building things and making America what she is. There was always people that were complaining about the immigrants. This is not a new argument that we've had. It's the same stupid argument we've been having for 400 years. The Irish, there's no Irish need apply, was a famous acronym. They just write Nina on a sign, and they slap it up on the window, and it's just sad. So then Garrett Morgan, he invented the traffic light. So then you had the Germans start coming over for like basically the second half of the 19th century. And they went, and cities like St. Louis and Milwaukee and Cincinnati, basically anywhere in Wisconsin. All these cities were started by German culture. They came over here. They were looking for like similar weather. And so they went to places where it was cold because that's what they liked. That's what they knew. And so these great American cities owe their support to immigration. And this may seem important to you. Brewing industry infrastructure, beer brewing industry. You think about Milwaukee and St. Louis, and to a lesser degree Cincinnati. What's one of the first things you think of when you think of their industries? If you drink beer, you probably think beer, right? Anheuser-Busch, Old Milwaukee. Like these are the beers that we have made in the United States largely come from these German immigrants. Like, who knew that Germans would have imported beer or like brought over beer, right? Like, what do the Germans know about beer? That was a joke, Oktoberfest. I guess it's November now. Anyway, the meat packing industry, a lot of that developed from the German immigration, piano manufacturing and publishing. So a lot of these things came from German immigrants, this German wave of immigrants. And there was, a lot of people that were like, oh, we're going to be speaking German before you know it, because there were so many Germans coming over. It's not new. It's not new. Like the whole race element of it is new, but we were judging different kinds of white people long before we were judging different kinds of brown people. But immigration has always been the strength of this country. Give us your tired, sorry. What is give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. It's not saying we'll take them on the Statue of Liberty. It's saying give us. We need to learn to live up to that again. Hey, we'll take your tired. We'll take your poor. Give them to us. You don't want them? Give them to us. Donald Trump says, oh, they're not sending us their best and brightest. Okay, don't send us your best and brightest. Just send us your tired. Send us your poor. Send us your hungry. Send us those who are longing to be free. Because that's what made America. Donald Trump didn't make America. Immigrants made America. Donald Trump can't make America great again. Because what is great about America came from immigrants. So, what are some other things? Kindergarten. Kindergarten is literally a German word. Our Christmas tree tradition, you know. Oh, Tannenbaum. Oh, Tannenbaum. Symphony orchestras like Beethoven, Mozart, German. And physical ed, gym classes, like gym class, German. Food, like some of these hamburgers and hot dogs. You want to talk about two more American foods that we talk about as American foods? Hamburgers and hot dogs. Go to any grill, thank the Germans. Go to any cookout, thank the Germans. The Germans are responsible for that. The pretzels, the sauerkraut, the beer culture, the delicatessens. Like, you just go to a cookout and tell me that you don't want immigration. And it's not just it's not just that food either. The barbecue, thank you for the Africans' heritage. That's where we got that from. All our barbecue techniques come from the slaves. So then the Irish, there was a big, during the Irish famine, there was a big influx of Irish. They helped build the Transcontinental Railroad. The Erie Canal, which connects the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean. We have that thanks to immigration. It's the Irish that dug that. They were also very instrumental in building the Transcontinental Railroad. The Transcontinental Railroad is really something. You had so many different groups that came together to put that together. The Irish, the Chinese, African Americans, and freed slaves. They all worked together for one of the greatest accomplishments in American history. Joining the two coasts by rail was amazing. And the work that was done was not done by the rich white people in Washington, D.C. The work that was done by immigrants. We need to value the bottom rung positions. So then what do we get from Irish culturally? Vaudeville. You know, most of the vaudeville theater, that was from the Irish. Then that, like Lucille Ball, the whole thing sprang from vaudevillian roots. And then she had a Cuban husband on the show. So, you know, like now that became like the genesis of the sitcom. So you sit down, you watch TV, you turn on a sitcom, thank the Irish. St. Patrick's Day celebrations, of course, everybody knows that's Irish. But a lot of our political machines and urban governance and all of that originated from the Irish. And, you know, sir, some of them were like boss machines and there was some corruption. But the idea of grassroots movements and all of that comes from the Irish. The most democratic thing that we do in terms of going out and getting people to vote and encouraging people to vote, that's an Irish innovation. Our Catholic school system, Irish. And then labor unions, another thing that multiple cultures help develop this. And I want to talk about this because I think that this is really something that we need to look at more. Is we kind of like look at the immigration workers as being bad for unions. I would actually say it's making low rung jobs illegal for immigrants to do that is hurting unions, because immigrants historically have been the heart, the burning coal of unions. um they're the ones that their lives are at risk. They're the ones that are fighting for, for themselves, and so they are the ones that are fighting the hardest. And what's happened is, by making illegal immigration legal, the people that take those bottom rung jobs are afraid to speak up because they can get, removed from the country. And the Americans that take those jobs are afraid to speak up because they're going to get replaced by immigrants. So that's why, and then coupled with that, you have this kind of attack on unions from the right, and right to work laws, which are basically right to work for less than what you deserve laws. But these kind of laws and these kind of pushback against unions, there's not the same kind of fight from unions because of that. And so even like the ALO, I think it is, that it hasn't advocated for immigration reform because they realize there's the need. So some foods that the Irish have brought us: corned beef and cabbage. Here's a story for you. When the night before I got engaged to my wife, I have some Irish heritage. And so I made corned beef I made corned beef for my wife the night before we got married, or before we got engaged. And it was the first time she ever had it. And I'm not saying it's part of the reason she said yes, but I think it's part of the reason she has said yes. It's now her favorite food. She loves corned beef. She never had it before. But anyway, corned beef is yums. So if you like corned beef, thank the Irish. Then the Chinese, they came over here during the latter half of the 19th century, and they were actually the first immigration laws that were basically passed to make, actually I don't even think it's based, I think it was overtly like made it illegal to have Chinese people immigrate. And that's where you started to see the shift from racism against, or just anti-immigration, to just pure racist anti-immigration. So they helped build the Transcontinental Railroad, like I mentioned earlier. A lot of the California agriculture infrastructure was developed by them and set up by them and modernized by them for, like from what was then. They helped build the Western mining towns. They had an impact on the gold mining industry, agricultural development, laundry business. If you look at the first case of somebody being illegally deported, it was over a laundry business thing where anyway, I won't go into all the details, but basically it was because the Chinese had so much power on the laundry business that they started illegally going after Chinese laundry owners, and the restaurant industry. I mean, there's like jokes about civilization. You're in a real city when there's at least one Chinese restaurant. And even what what's the A Christmas Story, the movie where they end up going to the Chinese restaurant at the end of the movie. Just Chinese food is such an American thing now, right? And we've got like Americanized Chinese food. Some Chinese food is actually not even Chinese, but it's the cuisine is inspired by Chinese. Like orange chicken is not really Chinese, but I love it. Um, oh, another one for food. If you've never been out for dim sum, I mean, first make sure you bring your wallet because it's not cheap. But dim sum, I say they call it dim sum because you eat some and dim sum and dim sum and dim some more. It's really really good. And don't turn a blind eye to those fried chicken feet. If you ever eat fried chicken feet, as long as you don't know they're fried chicken feet, you're fine. I went there with a friend of mine, took me out to dim sum, and the fried chicken feet there, and I was like, what's this? And he's like, don't ask, just eat it. And I ate it, and I was, this is so delicious. And I was like, so what was it? He's like, oh, that's fried chicken feet. I was like, yeah, you're probably, I don't know if I would have eaten it if I knew what it was, but it's really, really good. So the Italians, they started coming over in the late 1800s, early 1900s. They built the New York City subway, the skyscrapers that make New York City. The city, by the way, which remember was developed by the Dutch, is now being built upon by the Italians. Most of the urban infrastructure on those same roads that were laid by the Dutch. Their culture, they brought opera. Most of American opera we owe to the Italians. Film industry, they huge impact on there. Frank Capra, Martin Scorsese. Imagine the U.S. movie industry without The Godfather. The American wine industry. So the Italians, they, like a lot of them, even just they grow literal little house wines. They like make their own wine in their own house. And definitely every restaurant I went to when I lived in Italy, they'd have their house wine. They had their own wine that they made. And always, if you ever go to Italy, just order the house wine. It's always going to be just amazing. And it's going to be different in every one. But they brought this knowledge of how to grow, harvest grapes, how to make wine. It's basically the California wine industry now is the offshoot of Italian Americans bringing their wine making techniques to the United States. In industry, they got into constructions, the garment industry, wine production, restaurant industry. Food. I don't think I need to tell you about Italian food, right? You know, pizza, pasta dishes, Italian American cuisine. I mean, just think espresso. So, like, even Starbucks, for instance, we wouldn't have Starbucks without immigration because we wouldn't have like all these, you know, like fancy coffees that we learn to appreciate without the Italians bringing over espresso. It's such a tapestry of what we have and how one culture will bring over one thing and then another culture will bring over another thing, but they'll also build on top of that other thing. So we have something unique and beautiful that's not there anywhere else in the world, where all of these things come together. And I'm not just talking about the financial impact of things, I'm talking about the culture, because it's not about just the money. It's about who we are as a nation. And I think if I'm pretty sure ice cream came from gelato, not the other way around. So in some ways, I believe the Italians are responsible for ice cream. Like, just think about that. Think about life without ice cream. Okay, so then the Eastern European and Jews in the 1880s into 1924, the Jews were getting persecuted in Eastern Europe and Western Europe. And so they started to flee. And one of the places some of them came was the United States. And there were some immigration laws passed there to stifle how many can come over. And this was like immigration laws were passed tying to the percentage of immigrants that had already come from that country. So like if you had a large percentage of people coming from England, so England could have a lot of people come over. But Eastern Europeans, Lithuania didn't have so many people coming over, so they couldn't have as many immigrants. But one of the things that we owe to the Eastern Europeans and Jews is Broadway theater. Hollywood film studios like MGM, Warner Brothers, Universal, and Paramount. You know, they talk about, oh, you know, how it's all the Jewish movie industry, and they use this as in their little anti-Semitic tirades. But we do owe a good portion of our movie heritage to Jews. Tin Pan Alley, up until about 1972, you did not get discovered musically unless you were at Tin Pan Alley. It was like that's where music was discovered. Then sorry, I gotta situate my laptop here. So then they also contributed a lot to the garment industry. I had looked this up, but I mean, a good part of the garment industry was not just the Jews, but also Eastern Europeans, the film industry, the publishing industry, and department stores. So, I mean, you just think about, go through your life, go through a day in your life, and what you do during that day, and how much of what we've talked about today, how much of that are you experiencing? How much of your personal daily life is a result of immigration? They also contributed to labor unions. The labor unions are like the railroads, where you had different aspects of it where they would fight for different things in different industries, but the Jews and Eastern Europeans had a huge impact on that, and in social justice movements. When segregation, when they were fighting against segregation, blacks had no greater allies than Jews. The Jews literally died defending Black Americans' rights. So when you look at the ACLU or like public education advocacy was also a thing. Anyway, so then bagels and lox, Jews, delis. Oh man, imagine life without deli. Although I will say, my brother used to make this rhyme where he'd go, what was it? Smelly Kelly with the big fat belly shakes around from like a bowl full of jelly. Got so big at the local deli, something like that. But Kelly is not a name that rhymes with flattering words. And pickles. So I think you go into a cookout and you have a hamburger that we got from Germany, and you got some cookies that you got from the Dutch, and you got the pickles on the hamburgers that you got from the Jews. Like just going to a cookout and you got like some barbecue chicken, that the techniques were developed by the Africans. You can't even go to a barbecue without experiencing like 6 or 7 different cultures, and you call it American culture. You're like, oh, they're going to take over American culture. Dude, they are American culture. American culture is just an amalgamation of every other culture in the world. Don't be so afraid of other cultures. Other cultures are what made us. Okay. The Mexicans from the 1910s to the present, they built the Southwestern Railroad. Then the southwestern agriculture areas where the with the irrigation techniques and things like that were all things that were Mexican innovations, because they've had to deal with the same things, right? So you talk about, for instance, Texas. Did you know Texas has more small farms than any state in the union? And it's not even close. They have like 250,000, and I think the second is like 40,000, and it's Iowa. But where do you think we learned all that irrigation techniques and everything from? It's from the Mexicans. Urban construction and industry, agricultural backbone of California Southwest, meat packing, construction, service industries. We're going to get into this later in terms of the cost of mass deportations, but how much of our economic foundation right now depends on a lot of the Mexican and South American labor is huge, huge. Our culture, the Chicano art movement, mariachi and conjunto music, Tex-Mex and Borderlands culture, Dia de los Muertos celebrations. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with those, but I should be. I'm in Texas. Anyway, food, tacos, burritos, enchiladas, salsa. Did you know that salsa is more popular than ketchup? Salsa is the #1 condiment in America, even more than mayo, which I suppose that would make Stephen Miller hot. Tamales, guacamole, Tex-Mex cuisine. Like, it's easy to find a good Mexican restaurant almost anywhere you go, because there's a good Mexican cook almost everywhere you go. It's just, and you go to American restaurants, you get nachos in like virtually every American restaurant, right? Like, it's not just Mexican food anymore; it's American food. The Japanese from the 1880s to the present. California agriculture and fishing industry infrastructure. And a lot of people don't know about this. I did not know about it myself until I was preparing for this and looked it up. The Japanese fishing industry was, especially from like the late 1800s up until the internment camps in the 40s. The Japanese, they developed ships, they developed techniques, they incorporated new kinds of fish into our market, including tuna fish. We didn't eat tuna fish before the Japanese taught us, hey, tuna is really good. And so they became the heart of the tuna industry. And they developed all these techniques. They developed the shipping places. They developed the fish markets. All of this was Japanese industry. And then when they were interned, we just seized it all and never gave it back to them. And so some of them went and tried to, pick up where they left off, tried opening smaller stores and stuff. But next time you crack open a can of Starburst or Starkist, whatever it is, next time you peel open a can of tuna, thank the Japanese. We have them to thank for that. There have agricultural innovation, fishing industry, horticulture, technology sector, like definitely bonsai and garden design, martial arts. I think about all the martial arts movies that you watch. Well, you wouldn't be able to watch the martial arts movies without the Japanese bringing us martial arts and without the Jews making movies. Food, sushi restaurants, teriyaki, ramen. Oh yeah, ramen. Imagine life without ramen. There are probably people in life that go through their whole life without experiencing ramen, and that just makes me sad. Ramen is some good food. And you go to the grocery store and you get even like the packaged ramen that's like 98% sodium. But that's just ask any college kid what they survived on during college, what they're surviving on. It's like ramen gets us through college. Ramen and hot dogs. All right, so the Indians in the Southwest or in the South Asians today, look, the CEOs of Google, Microsoft, and IBM are all Southeast Asian. The Google search engine was invented by a Southeast Asian. Like the entire tech industry, I think is it like 55% of the tech industry is owned or operated by immigrants, and a lot of those are from Asia or Southeast Asia. There's the medical profession, engineering, hospitality. So yeah, innovation, Silicon Valley tech leadership, medical research, pharmaceutical development, the culture, yoga, mainstream adoption, Bollywood film influence, which is really starting to take off. I think Bollywood's becoming like a thing here. It's obviously a big thing in India, but it's becoming a bigger thing here. Indian restaurants, curry dishes, naan bread. There was a YouTube video where this guy was like, went to a Chinese restaurant and he got like his first taste of chicken masala or was it was either chicken masala or butter chicken. Anyway, and where did I go? Sorry. And he was trying it with the naan bread, and he just could not believe what he was eating. Like he had never had naan bread and had no idea how delicious it was. But yeah, go to an Indian restaurant. That this is what I love about living in America, is that you can experience like food from all over the world. The Vietnamese, they make up about 40% of nail technicians now. They also, because again, they're like on this little island, or like so much of their industry is fishing industry. They come over here. They bring fishing innovations. I'm not too familiar with the Vietnamese American literature, so I can't comment on that. I didn't look that up, but the one thing on the food side, spring rolls. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Vietnamese spring rolls are so good. The Filipinos, so much of our healthcare industry right now is from Filipinos, nurses and caregivers, and physical therapists. The food I want to highlight here, adobo, is so good. Adobo is just a brilliant way to eat chicken. And there's a channel on YouTube that's called That Dude Can't Cook, or That Dude Can Cook. So if you want to learn how to make a good Filipino adobo, go and there he's got a dish on that's really just It's not hard to make. It's delicious. So the Caribbean and the West Indies. I'm kind of getting short on time here, so I'm kind of just cruising through these last ones. But the culture that we get from the Caribbeans, reggae, Bob Marley, such just gets incorporated into thing. And then of course, like jerk chicken, plantains, are so good. And you got like Cuban food, black beans and rice. And then the Middle Eastern and Arab, the grocery stores, like you go up to Michigan, and it's like almost all the grocery stores are owned by Middle Easterners. And what they do is they have one guy come over. He works at a grocery store. He ends up buying a grocery store. Then he brings over his family to work at the grocery store. Then they work their way up and they buy grocery stores. So like now it's like 95% of the grocery stores in Detroit are owned by Arabs. But they're also have a lot of contributions to the medical profession and engineering, architecture, and food, like hummus. Hummus, by the way, if you've never made your own hummus, it's so much better than store-bought hummus, and it's so easy to make. It's actually you would be surprised how easy it is to make. But like those beans when they're freshly, especially if you make them from dry beans. I use dry beans and I just put them in my pressure cooker, turn it on, and then I just you just toast up some sesame seeds and you throw in the beans and you throw in the sesame seeds into a food processor and you mix it up. And that's about how hard it is to make hummus. And then if, I make my own pita bread too, but that's just showing off. Anyway, just think about all this. The point, without immigration, there would be no transcontinental railroad, no jazz, no pizza, no Silicon Valley, no Hollywood, no hip hop, no hamburgers, no sitcoms, no tacos, no internet, no nothing. There would be no America as we know it. Every cultural touchstone, every infrastructure marvel, every food we love, immigrants didn't just contribute to America. They created what America is. And this is one reason why we need to start and think about what we're doing with immigration, because this is how we got to where we are. Who's the next Google, the next guy that's going to create the next Google or the next blood bank? What are the innovations we're excluding from our culture by excluding immigrants, and not just the rich and famous and educated immigrants, but the low-level immigrants? And they come over here and they're just filled with the American dream. Children of immigrants do 26% better than the children of American-born citizens or people born to Americans, like natural-born children of natural-born Americans. So that's because their parents came over here filled with this American dream, and they pumped their kids full of that American dream. And so when we're talking about the immigrants coming over, we can't just talk about the immigrants coming over. We're talking about their children and what they can produce. Stephen Miller thinks they're just going to produce more brown people. I think they're going to create more blood banks, more search engines. They're going to create more tuna industries. They're going to create things that we don't know what they are yet, and we never will know if we just shut them out. But who America is, both in terms of its economic success and its cultural success, and what we do when we just go through our daily life. You cannot separate your life from cultural influences across many, many different immigration waves. So, okay, that's first of all, I just wanted to cover that in detail because I think we need to learn and discuss what it is that we get from immigrants. We need to understand why it's so important. Okay, so now the next thing I want to talk about is who can actually immigrate to the US legally. Because you always hear people say, oh, well, then why don't they just do it the right way? If it's so important, why don't they just do it the right way? And then here's the thing 95% of the people in the world, there is no right way to do it. So I'm going through, I'll try and go through this a little more quickly, but this is the right way. This is every legal avenue that immigrants have. Okay. Who can actually immigrate to the US legally? The total annual immigration limit, there's about 1 million people per year of all categories who end up being able to immigrate. There are, I think, you might be surprised to hear this, but about 20 million legally working, or there are about 20 million immigrants working in the United States right now, including both the legal and the illegal immigrants. So that's a big chunk of our workforce. 226,000 are family-based visas. So out of this, now you're down to 775,000 if you don't have somebody that's living here. 140,000 are performance-based, and 51,600 are based on the lottery. So where is all this? And not only that, how long do you have to wait? Like when you say get in line, how long is the line? And that does the length of that line depend on where you live? And even in some places, can you even get in line? Is there a line to get in? All right. So the first one is called we're going to go through the family-based immigration. Spouses of U.S. citizens can migrate. Unmarried children under 21 of U.S. citizens and parents of U.S. citizens if the citizen is 21 or over. Their usual waiting time for that is 1 to 2 years. No quota wait. So that can be a little more hard than it sounds. So I'm going to go through this one at a time. Unmarried adult children of U.S. citizens. So how can you be an adult children of a U.S. citizen? Well, because the U.S. citizen was naturalized. So you've got like, say Jose turned 45 when he got his citizenship, and his son is now 24. His son can apply for citizenship because his dad's a citizenship. So obviously this is not applying to they weren't citizens of the United States when their children were born. They became citizens after their children became adults, or in the time of waiting. So the average wait time for this is 7 to 8 years. And this is what I mean by the average time of waiting, that they have to, so they became a citizen, like Jose became a citizen when he was 30 and Jose was 14 at the time. Well, in the time of waiting for Jose to become, or in the time for Jose's son waiting to become a citizen, he went over 18, and so now he's got to get back in line. Now he's an adult child, or 21, I'm sorry. So, okay, F2A spouses, children of green card holders. And there's a cap on this. And there's a cap on the unmarried children too. Only 23,400 per year. And that's why the line gets so long. You can have an adult child, but that child just has to get in line, and that line can be really long, like 7 or 8 years long. F2A spouses, children of green card holders, that's a cap of 87,000 per year. And this is 77% of the F2 category, this whole category of family. Their average wait time is 2 to 3 years. Unmarried children of green card holders, they have to wait 7 or 8 years. Cap is 26,000. So notice how small these caps are. Only like 25,000 apiece. Married children of U.S. citizens, they have to wait 15 years. So the unmarried ones only have to wait 7 to 8 years. The married ones have to wait 15 years. So it's like, imagine having to choose between your spouse and your parents. Siblings of U.S. citizens, that one's the worst. There's a cap of 65,000 per year, but the average wait time is 15 to 23 years. So when Steve Miller's talking about chain migration and how easy it is, and they drew these little sophistry pyramid charts and stuff like that, no, it's not like, they just come over here and then they bring their friends over, and then, no, it's not that simple. It's like they wait 20 years and then they can bring their sibling over. So, okay, most people in the world do not have relatives that are citizens of the United States. So for most of the world, this is already not a workable option. And for the few that do, there can be a wait time of anywhere from 2 to 20 years or longer. So that get in line, or, that's just not a theoretical, realistic possibility. So then what about employment-based immigration? You've got your EB-1 priority workers. The cap on that is $40,000 a year. And these are people that are exceptionally qualified. And the worker, there's a cap of that on $40,000 per year. Usually to get these, you need at least a bachelor's degree, probably a graduate degree. EB-2s, you need an advanced degree, like a master's degree or higher. Cap is $40,000. You have to come to take a job that's already offered that nobody else can take. You can't make more money or make less money than somebody else taking it would be. The wait time for Indians for these years is 50 years, which is like, by that time, what is even the point? Like, you're 20 when you've got an advanced degree, right? And so if you're 25 and you wait 50 years, you can go and take this job in 70. Like, it doesn't make sense. Wait time for Chinese is 3 to 5 years. Other countries, 1 to 2 years. EB-3 skilled workers and professionals. These are capped at $40,000 per year. And you need a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience of training, or OJT. The E4 special immigrants. This is capped at $10,000 a year. This is for religious workers. Like, in my church, we had a guy that came over on an EB-4 visa, and he was a religious worker. He worked for our church, and he worked with the Spanish-speaking people in our group, and so he got an EB-4 visa. There's a cap of 10,000 of those on a year, and those are really hard to get, by the way. You have to, like, and this was pre-Trump. They were hard to get. This was, who was president then? Obama, I think. And EB-5 investors, these are the ones that, you basically can just buy a visa if you're super rich. So for all of these, you need a degree, a bachelor's degree at a minimum, probably an advanced degree. You need to be able to take a job that's being offered. And the employer has to, like, already have tried to hire somebody local. So for the 90% of the world that doesn't have degrees, this is not a viable option. And people that have degrees aren't coming over here to take the bottom rung jobs that have made America what it is. I really want to emphasize this point. We need immigrants that come in and take the bottom rung jobs. And I absolutely detest the idea that, oh, that makes me somehow racist or whatever. No, it doesn't. That's our whole heritage. It was true when the Irish were doing it. It's true when the Germans were doing it. It's true when the Italians were doing it. It's how people have come over here and made themselves better. They come and they climb at the bottom of the ladder and they work their way up, and then their children do better, and then their children do better. This is America. That's the American dream. The American dream is that you can make yourself better. You can do better for your next. So then there's the diversity visa lottery. And you've got 22 million people apply each year. And out of those, 50,000 can come over. And this is, you still have to have a high school education or 2 years work experience in a qualifying occupation. But this is the most realistic chance of being able to come over here legally, is you've got a 1 in 400 chance of winning the lottery, but you have to be from the right country to even enter it. If you're from Bangladesh, Brazil, Canada, China, Colombia, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, India, Jamaica, Mexico, Nigeria, Pakistan, Philippines, South Korea, Venezuela, or Vietnam, you can't even apply for the lottery program. Even if selected in lottery, you're not guaranteed a visa. You must still qualify under all immigration requirements, pass a background check, and prove you won't become a public charge. Public charge means that you won't depend on, government for your living. Okay, then there's the humanitarian and refugee categories. And basically this one, I'll just sum it up real quick. You have to either have your life threatened or become a victim of sex trafficking or something like that. You have to have really, really horrible crap happening to you in order to qualify for one of these. We had a cap of those at 125,000. Donald Trump, in his orange splendor, has reduced that cap to 7,500 people, which is just nasty. So then, the refugees, asylum seekers. Okay. Then you've got your temporary work visas. Okay. And your temporary work visas are exactly what they say. They are temporary. And that means that you can't get a green card on an H-1B, an H-2A, or an H-2B visa. They expire. There's no pathway to citizenship. The H-2A visas, there's no cap on them. I think that they're only good for the season. And in order to get them, you have to live in certain countries. And because if it's a farmer or whatever, then for an agricultural visa, it'd be a farmer, it's going to cost them $10,000 or $7,000 more to bring over somebody on a temporary visa. And they're already struggling on their farms for the most part. And so they have to prove there's no U.S. workers available. Then they have to provide for the transportation. They have to provide for the living situation, like pay for their rent or, provide a place for them to stay. It's one of the reasons why large corporate farms actually have an advantage, because the large corporate farms can just build a bunk and put everybody in there. Your small private farmer doesn't have the money to build that bunk. So anyway, it costs the average small farmer, $7,000 more per visa. And this to me is the H-2A visas and the H-2B visas. H-2B visas are basically temporary seasonal jobs that aren't agricultural. So the guy that comes and raises the cows gets an H-2A. The guy that butchers the cow and processes it in the meat factory gets an H-2B visa. And the cap on those is 66,000 per year. I think the number of people that are working in non-agriculture, and this is everything, is like 7 million, something like that. There's like an insane amount of people that almost everybody that is working in construction, or all the undocumented workers, most of those, if they had a temporary legal way to get over here, it would be H-2B visas, and the cap is on 66,000 a year. I think it was 1990 that cap was instituted, and there's been no updates to immigration laws since then. So if you don't have a U.S. citizen or permanent resident as a relative, you have no pathway. If you have no college degree or advanced skills, you have no pathway. If you're from Mexico, Chile, India, Philippines, or higher demand country without those qualifications, you might be able to wait 10 to 50 years due to per country caps, but you're probably not coming over here. You don't have $1 million to drop down on the table for an EB-5 visa. You can't come over here. If you're from a country excluded from diversity lottery, you can't come over here. If you're fleeing climate change, poverty, or gang violence, too bad. None of those things are recognized currently as asylum refugee claims under current law. And it's like they make this big distinction about whether or not, the gang is going to kill you or the government is going to kill you. Well, or if starvation is going to kill you. If you're dead, you're dead. It doesn't matter what killed you. For the vast majority of people worldwide, there is no legal pathway to migrate to the United States, no matter how hard they try. Okay, so now I'm going to go into, oh, sorry, got a comment here. I do not know how to pick soybeans, Patrick. I think that soybeans are harvested by automation. There are some products some produce that can be replaced with automation, but there's some like strawberries that can't be replaced with automation. So you would have to know how to pick strawberries. And I think that there's always people say, oh, there's no unskilled jobs. I agree with that. Everything's a skill. I can go and I can pick a strawberry, but I don't think I could pick a pound of strawberries as fast as somebody that's been doing it for 5 years. All right, so I'm going to segue into this, and then I'll come back to the second half of this chart, because the next thing I want to talk about, or wait. Yeah, okay, we'll just finish this. So the system was designed decades ago. Employment-based caps set 30 years ago don't reflect today's economy or demographics. The per-country caps are arbitrary. 7% cap treats Luxembourg, with 650,000 people, the same as India, 1.4 billion people. So obviously, you've got a better chance if you're from Luxembourg. Most people don't qualify. I think it's hard to put an exact number on it because of the different types of visas, but I think easily 95% of people in the world, there is no legal pathway to come here. There's no line. There just isn't one. And for a lot of those, there's not a realistic one because of just the amount of time they'd have to wait in line. Like if you wait 50 years to get a visa, you don't have a realistic pathway. 14% of applicants will die before receiving a green card if they stay in line. If you have to die waiting in line, what's the point of the line? Okay, so now let's talk about the case for immigration reform. And this is where I'm, like I talked about in my title, I call it, like the case for illegal immigration. When I say illegal immigration, what I am saying is make immigration legal again. Like, we need to restore this method of having undocumented workers be able to come here and work. That's good for Americans, and that's good for immigrants. That's good for everybody. And what's harmful for everybody is Stephen Miller's way of doing things, which is just deport everybody. So here's the numbers. It cost to deport 11 million people at one time, like he's trying to do as fast as possible, costs us $315 billion, or we can try and do it over 11 years, and it costs us $968 billion. So that's just the cost of doing the deportation. All right. When you go and you look at the loss of GDP, you do not pack up 11 million people and take them away from their jobs and not impact the GDP. They're actually doing work, which means that the businesses they work for are making money. That also means that they're getting paid, and that means that they're spending money. And so that also has an impact on GDP. And so the annual GDP loss from mass deportation would be $1.1 to $1.7 trillion. And that's like a 5 to 7%, 4.2 to 6.8% reduction in GDP. That means our entire economy is like retracting every year or contracting every year. It means we are in a recession like we haven't seen since 1929. It's devastating to our country. We need to start talking about this more, how devastating it is to our country for these mass deportations. It's not just the money from the jobs they're doing, it's the money from the money they're spending from what they're making. And study after study proves that immigration actually increases domestic labor. So for instance, you get like 50 immigrants working for you at your farm, and you need people to supervise them. And so you have jobs created by the immigrants. And it's, I think, for every million immigrants, there are 44,000 jobs created. And contrarily, for every, I'm sorry, is it 500,000? Something like that. Anyway, the number of jobs, immigrants create jobs for Americans. That's what I'm trying to say. But they also, contrary again to what Steve Miller says, Stephen Miller, he just lies. If he said the sky was blue, I would run outside to see what the hell happened to the sky. They pay $76.1 billion in Texas. They pay taxes. They have an ID, even, and they pay taxes. And they don't get the benefit from the taxes that you do. They pay $22.6 billion into Social Security. But because they're not legally here, they don't get Social Security. So, here it is. Due to business closures, reduced customer spending, and supply chain distributions, Americans' job loss per 1 million deported. So it's 88,000 per million. And the contrary exists too. For every million immigrants working here, that creates another 88,000 jobs. So we can lose 88,000 times 11. What is that? about 1 million, just a little under 1 million. 1 million jobs, American jobs, that are lost thanks to Stephen Miller's protecting American jobs. The industries most affected, workers who would be removed, construction workers. We have a housing shortage. The dumbest thing you could do right now is deport the people that are building the friggin' houses. It's almost like if I were to sit down and design something to damage the economy as much as humanly possible, I would follow Donald Trump's playbook by rote. He is destroying America. I can't even imagine. Why would you want to devastate construction workers right now? They're 25% of the workforce. Do you think that getting rid of 25% of the workforce in construction is going to help us build new houses, Stephen? Agriculture, 225,000 workers, 14% of the workforce. Hospitality, another 1 million workers. Manufacturing, you're so concerned about manufacturing, 870,000 workers. Transportation, 461,000 workers. We're just devastating major aspects of our American economy by mass deportations. And you say, well, they should have come over here legally. Well, I just covered that. How do they come over here legally? They're taking away American jobs. No, they're providing American jobs. But they did it illegally. Then change the law. Make immigration legal again. The business impact, $27.1 billion. Business income from undocumented entrepreneurs. They open businesses. Those businesses hire people. Those businesses make money. $27 billion a year from businesses owned and operated by undocumented immigrants. And then 8.5 million U.S. citizens right now are in mixed households. And this to me is, how can you, Texas, how can you be so stupid? You talked about, there were 2 amendments that passed in Texas. One said that you can't pass any laws that allow illegal immigrants to vote. And the other one was parental rights. So what if that parent, or non-citizens to vote, right? So that parent can't vote for school board meetings or school boards? Does that parent not have a right to how their child is educated? And the idea that we should like destroy families, the family values people, the one that blame all the problems in, you know, in inner cities on not having fathers, want to deport the fathers, or force the children to go, like deport the whole family, including the wife and the children, if they want to be with their husband and father. Where's the humanity in that? Where's the decency in that? Where's the kindness in this policy? And it doesn't help America at all. It hurts us. It hurts our economy. Nothing is more devastating to our economy than mass deportations. And that includes tariffs, that includes the austerity cuts to the budget, which are both incredibly damaging. But nothing is as damaging as the mass deportations. And there's the human aspect of that, and the way that ICE is conducting them, and all of that is legitimately something to be angry about. But let's not ignore the cost to our economy, the cost to our country. For most people, there is no line to stand in, as we just covered. Wait times have doubled. People will die waiting. There's 11.3 million people right now waiting There's geographic discrimination, education barriers, system capacity. So we've already covered all that. Then you get into climate change, right? So now I want to go back into why we need to change our laws. And the first point, which we already covered a bit, is there's just no legal way. But there's also a certain responsibility we bear. We broke South America with our policy and with over 100 years of our intervention. Climate change, Central America, as estimated to migrate, are 30 million Central Americans estimated to migrate to the U.S. Mexico border over the next 30 years due to climate impacts. Hurricanes are happening on the regular. Droughts in Central America. Coffee crop failures from climate change. Even, like they have molds and stuff that are killing crops that are migrating. Like the molds are migrating because of climate change. There were 700,000 displaced by floods in Brazil in 2022. That's actually in one of the areas where it was hit the worst. Is where my dad lives. And it was in the mountains. Can you imagine that? Flooding in the mountains? But rain was so bad, there was flooding in the mountains. 281,000 displaced by floods in Colombia. So these people, their whole lives are just wiped away in one storm. And you can say, well, that's not our problem. But climate change kind of is our problem when we're not taking climate change seriously. We're destroying other countries with our need to burn as much oil as humanly possible and pretend that science isn't real. Internal climate migrants in Mexico and Central America expected to go up to 1.4 to 3.9 million. And the thing is, climate refugees have no legal avenue. Like right now, it's not considered a valid reason. But again, if you're going to starve to death or get shot to death by the government, you're just as dead either way. The whole notion of asylum is that you should not be compelled to live in a certain country because you were born there, even if it can, even if leaving it is the only way to save your life. Well, whether you starve to death, whether gangs kill you, or whether the government kills you, you're equally dead all three ways. So this goes into what I was saying about our political intervention. And I'm going to post these dashboards in the links, and you can go through all these and look over them by yourself. But we have succeeded. We have intervened and successfully intervened 41 times in Latin America, overturning governments. 41 times. So the instability, both in terms of economic and social instability there in a lot of those countries, it's the US's fault. We created this mess. We need to clean it up. So what are some ways we can go forward? What are some things we can do about this? How can we make immigration legal again? So we can try a simultaneous approach. We can create pathways to legal status for those already here. So for instance, you're here, you're working illegally, you apply, you show that you don't have a criminal history while you're here, that your only other crime is, crossing the border illegally, that you're working, that you're not drawing government income, that you can support yourself. And then we give you a way to get citizenship. And that's good for everyone. And one thing that I would like to point out that this does is, like I always hear this invalid, silly argument from the right that, oh, you just want to send, they say, oh, you're just saying who's going to pick our cotton. And no, you're saying send the freed slaves back to Africa. What I'm saying is we should have given the mule, the freed slaves 40 acres and a mule like we promised. Like when we give them a pathway to citizenship, when we give undocumented workers a pathway to citizenship, we actually empower them. We empower them to fight with unions to get equitable pay for equitable work. And then that also raises the floor for natural American citizens. It works out better for everybody. And it even, for the MAGA farmer who has to hire immigrants to keep his business, he has a way to do it without a guilty conscience. And he can still afford to pay his workers what he's supposed to pay them. His business can actually grow. We need to overhaul the quota system to match modern reality, allow more people to come over here, remove per country caps that create discretionary wait times, increase employment-based visas beyond $140,000 a year, change enforcement priorities away from families and workers. So basically, allow more people to come over here, make immigration legal again. The quotas are ridiculous. Like 24,000 for, wives of citizens. So this, if we do this, it makes more economic sense. We, instead of contracting by 6 or 7%, we actually grow. Studies show if we just gave citizens or gave people that are here a pathway to citizenship, we would actually grow the GDP by almost $2 trillion over the next 10 years, instead of shrinking it by $7 trillion over the next 10 years. That's almost a $10 trillion difference between providing a pathway for citizenship and mass deportations. What makes more sense to you? Having $2 trillion more dollars or $8 trillion less dollars? And it saves us $1 billion in enforcement costs. It saves us from humiliation of having to have the entire world watch how we abuse people, brown women picking up kids at grade school. We maintain our GDP growth and tax revenue. Don't forget about the tax revenue. These people do pay taxes. You're concerned about the debt? Well, what if I told you there was a way that we could spend $1 trillion less dollars and make $1 trillion more? If you care about the national debt, allow for a pathway to citizenship instead of mass deportations, because that will pay down the debt quicker than mass deportations were. Protect American jobs that depend on a full economy. And that's the thing that I think is counterintuitive, that a lot of people do not understand. Legalizing mass immigration actually provides more American jobs. It does not take American jobs. There's a reason they are taking jobs that nobody else wants, because they're available, and they're available because nobody wants them. They're willing to come over here. They love America so much, they're willing to come over here and harvest strawberries and do whatever else so that their kids can maybe graduate from a good school and go to college, and their kids can have a better life. This is how we have gone as a nation for 400 years. Do you think that there's a good reason to stop it right now? We're always going to need strawberry pickers. So give people a chance to come over and pick strawberries and earn their way to a better life. They're not getting handouts. It's not about them being lazy. You want to call a strawberry picker lazy? You get your ass out into one of those strawberry fields and work for 1 hour, and then you tell me they're lazy. And they enable labor protections for all workers. Like, if the immigrants are not here illegally, they can fight for collective labor. And that means that they are also not leverage used against people that are here that are working some of those same jobs. Raise the floor. Don't lower the ceiling. So we have a historical responsibility because we have created this mess. We've supported community-led, we need to support community-led climate resilience programs because we have caused so much of the climate change. We need to acknowledge U.S. role in destabilizing source countries and stop doing it. People don't understand that, like, what one thing Kamala Harris did that she did not get credit for, that she deserves credit for, is she worked with the triangle countries in Central America to establish U.S. businesses there that caused new jobs to grow, and those new jobs meant that people stayed. She reduced the number of people that were trying to run to America by producing opportunities and incentives for them to stay in Guatemala and Honduras. We need to think of ways not just to, there's in immigration, there's what they call a push and pull factor. A push factor is what is driving people out, and the pull factor is what is drawing people in. So why are people leaving Guatemala, and also why are people coming to America? We've tried to address this by making living in America for them even more horrifying than living in Guatemala. Well, what if we made it that the U.S. businesses can invest there, they can make money and make it more palatable for the Guatemalans to stay. They don't like walking across half a continent with their children in order to save their children's lives. They'd like another choice. Give them one. Work on the push factors. Reduce the push factors. Don't just make the pull factors more and more antagonistic. And I think we need to create some climate refugee protections. Like, I think we need to carve out some things for climate refugees. Like, you had your entire island wiped out by a tornado, by a hurricane. Okay, you can come to America. There's nothing there anymore. We need carve-outs for that. And we need to invest in regional stability instead of enforcement, like what I was just talking about with Harris. There are answers. We're just not trying to answer the right questions. And we can either make America great again by making immigration legal again, or we can just continue pretending that all the issues we've ever had are all because of the brown people coming over the border. And I just want to emphasize this one last part. Anti-immigration rhetoric, excuse me, want to reiterate, anti-immigration rhetoric is not new. It goes back as far as immigration. Benjamin Franklin was anti-immigration. He said that the Dutch coming over were going to ruin everything. They were going to ruin Pennsylvania. They were going to make it so that the language was Dutch, and, you know, they wouldn't respect the English. Well, he was wrong. But Benjamin Franklin was anti-immigrant. And instead what we got was New York City. Let's think about what immigration means. Let's stop making it about, oh, just send us your best and brightest. No, send us your tired and poor. Send us your hungry. Send us your longing to be free. Those are the ones that are going to build America and make it something better than what it is today. And we'll give you back Stephen Miller, and you can do whatever we want with him. All right, so didn't get a lot of comments today, but thanks for watching, those of you who did. And I'll talk to you later. Appreciate you.